right, we're going to talk about broadband. And we'll start with Mr. Apodaca. And New Mexico's broadband service is sporadic and non-existent in many rural parts of our state. This affects students who have homework to do, and it also affects many small businesses. What are your proposals to change this statewide problem?
You're being very kind. Actually, we're probably one of the worst states. I've been traveling now for over a year campaigning around the state, and broadband it's sadly missing in many parts of our state, and actually cell phone services. So we have a plan to invest about $500 million, and we believe we can get about $400 million of that from federal grants. These are federal grants, matching funds that we just haven't invested in and haven't been able to capture. So again, as governor, we're going to make sure I work with our federal delegation and make sure we can work with those and build that infrastructure out. Because yes, as we invest our economy, as we invest into ourselves, that's part of the things we're talking about is infrastructure. And then we have millions and millions of dollars of capital outlay that literally go on projects that really don't help a lot of people. Might build a building, but don't have a lot of people. Then we have billions of dollars of capital outlay that sits around in our banks for about 6 years because our legislators don't know how to or will fight over capital outlay. I think it's time we start looking at capital outlay a little bit different. So folks, we talk about $23 billion in our investment funds or our permanent funds that we invest outside the state. We literally sit around about $4 billion in our banks. So we know the capital's there, we know there's federal grant dollars there, and we have to do this because today, 50% of the jobs today, and it's in our education plan, we talk about creating pathways for our kids. Today, 50% of the jobs for 35 and under are what they call telecommuting jobs, which means you can work right here in Santa Fe, or you can work in Chama, you can work in Grants or Gallup, and you can work for a company outside our state. There's over 3 million jobs today like that in the United States. On average, pays $83,000 a year. So even if we trained our kids for those jobs, half our kids in New Mexico don't have those opportunities. And that's what we're talking about within our education plan, our economic plan. So again, once I say, go to our website, apo18.com, and look at our jobs plan, look at our education plan, look at our health plan. We cover all these in detail because it's time we start investing back into you, not outside our state.
Congressman.
I answer to almost anything. I've had to in this campaign. So there's no question that connectivity in New Mexico is a huge challenge. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. One, New Mexico has a leading telehealth or telemedicine program. It's called ECHO. It's operated by a doctor named Sanjeev Arora in Albuquerque at the University of New Mexico. It's doing incredible work by connecting high chronic care patients with rural providers using telehealth, so that if we're treating Hep C, which is a complicated infectious disease, you can do that with a primary care physician in a rural area. But one of the limiting challenges is that they can't have as robust or successful a program meeting the needs of so many families and patients because we just don't have that connectivity. Two, if we're going to really push small business growth and development and renewable energy into rural New Mexico, then rural New Mexico, not that that's the only place we have connectivity issues, but it is especially profound in rural New Mexico and in Indian country, where we have not yet made connectivity a number one priority. It's a perverse funding formula, both at the federal level and at the state level, about how you recapture costs and what the ratepayers will pay, so that we don't make those investments, which is why, as I described earlier, we're putting broadband into federal funding so that we've got that shot in the arm for federal dollars, which is our money, being returned to New Mexico so that you can lay that groundwork, pardon the pun, you got to lay that fiber so that we can finally grow small businesses, make sure we can't improve our educational outcomes in so many areas of the state because those schools are not connected and can't get on the internet. We have to have every tool in our toolbox. I'm committed to making broadband a successful commitment in this state. Thank you.
Senator Cervantes, same question, please.
I'm urging New Mexicans in this campaign to respect the importance of experience. Let me give you an example. The legislature 2 years ago, this last session, passed broadband legislation, comprehensive broadband legislation. The governor vetoed it, but she got it wrong. You all may have read about that. Peter Worth and I sued the governor over improper vetoes. After 7 years of experience, a governor who comes from outside the process, never worked with the legislature, didn't understand the process, vetoed bills after 7 years and got it wrong. We had to take her all the way to the New Mexico Supreme Court to persuade her that she was wrong, and the Supreme Court ultimately did exactly what those of us that are lawyers and experienced knew they would do, which is overturned her vetoes, and now we have that legislation to support broadband. Apart from the answers you've received previously, there are a few others. Realize that in our rural parts of our state, and we've all been campaigning around the state, those rural communities want to survive. They want to keep themselves in their communities. They want to have opportunities. The only way that they're going to be able to do so is with that broadband access, to be able to work at home. When I went to practice law 30 years ago, I went to work for New Mexico's largest law firm in Albuquerque, the Model Law Firm. An entire floor of the high rise in downtown Albuquerque was the library. Now my law library is on my phone, my laptop. Those days in 30 years is gone. I can only imagine what the future holds for my daughters and their future in medicine and in law when they have the opportunity of the internet and technology. Broadband is our future. We need to have that investment commitment. The discussion earlier about infrastructure is an important tie to this because we have an antiquated system of capital outlay, which is our infrastructure funding, where the governor takes a third. You all have heard this. The governor takes a third, the House takes a third, the Senate takes a third. I've been fighting against that for years. I've introduced legislation to change it. I've been able to do it with water projects and water infrastructure in our state. I'm going to take the same success that I brought to water projects in our state and bring it to all of our capital outlay and get beyond this nonsense of every member taking their little piece of the pie and everybody going home with it. We need to come together as a state and infrastructure investment together.